In the last class, we have studied about adsorption, absorption, desorption and sorption. And adsorption is a phenomenon of accumulation of molecular species on the surface of solid or liquid rather than in the bulk of the solid or liquid. That phenomenon is called adsorption. And we have also studied about absorption, difference between adsorption and absorption. Difference between adsorption and absorption is a surface phenomenon, whereas absorption is a bulk phenomenon. And in adsorption, the concentration of adsorbate is high on the surface of adsorbent, whereas in absorption the concentration of the absorbate is uniform throughout the absorbent. And in adsorption the rate is high in the beginning, but in absorption the rate is uniform throughout the process. So these are the difference between adsorption and absorption. And also we have studied about the mechanism of adsorption, why the adsorption takes place, and also the magnitude of delta H and delta S during adsorption. I repeat, the magnitude of delta H is negative during adsorption since it is an exothermic process, and magnitude of delta S is also negative as the entropy decreases during adsorption. And types of adsorption, there are mainly two types of adsorption: physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. If the bond or interaction between the adsorbate and adsorbent is van der Waals force of attraction, then that type of adsorption is called physical adsorption or physisorption. If the interaction between adsorbate and adsorbent is because of the chemical bond, that type of adsorption is called chemisorption or chemical adsorption. I hope you remember about adsorbate and adsorbent. Adsorbate are the molecular species which accumulates on the surface of a solid or liquid, whereas adsorbent is a surface on which adsorption takes place. Suppose this is a solid surface, this is called adsorbent, and if some gas molecules accumulates on the surface of this solid, this is called adsorbate. So adsorbate are the molecular species which accumulates on the surface of a solid or liquid. Usually these adsorbent are solid or liquid. So adsorbent are the solid or liquid on which usually gas molecules accumulates, and these gas molecules are called adsorbate. So you must remember this adsorbate and adsorbent throughout the chapter. What is adsorbate and what is adsorbent? Now coming back to the types of adsorption, there are two types of adsorption: physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. So you know that physical adsorption is formed because of the interaction between adsorbate and adsorbent due to van der Waals force of interaction. And the characteristic features of physical adsorption are lack of specificity, nature of adsorbate, reversible nature, surface area of adsorbent and heat of adsorption. Lack of specificity means any given solid surface has no preference for any gas. Any gas can come and occupied on the surface of the solid adsorbent. So that is lack of specificity. Nature of adsorbate means though a solid has no preference for any gas, the amount of gas adsorbed on the solid surface depends on nature of adsorbate. Easily liquefiable gases can readily adsorb. And reversible nature. Physical adsorption is reversible by changing the conditions of pressure and temperature. The process can be reversed. Usually physical adsorption is favorable at lower temperature, and with increase in pressure the physical adsorption, rate of physical adsorption increases. Physical adsorption is reversible in nature. We can change the direction of the physical adsorption by changing the conditions of temperature and pressure. Since, okay, I'll write reversible nature as gas is adsorbed on the surface of the solid. We can write it as gas is adsorbed on the surface of the solid plus heat. So as the forward reaction is exothermic because of the liberation of heat. If you decrease the temperature, the reaction takes place in the forward direction. That is according to Le-Chatelier's principle. And if you increase the temperature, the system tries to decrease it by favoring the reaction in the backward direction. Forward reaction is exothermic. So if you decrease the temperature, forward reaction is favored. If you increase the temperature, backward reaction is favored. So by changing the conditions of temperature, we can bring the reaction in the forward direction or in the backward direction. Similarly, during adsorption, pressure is decreased, right? So pressure is decreased. So if we increase the pressure, system tries to decrease it by directing the reaction in the forward direction. Or if you decrease the pressure, system tries to increase it by favoring the reaction in the backward direction. So increase in pressure increases the rate of physical adsorption, decrease in pressure favors the reaction in the backward direction. So that is physical adsorption is reversible in nature. And surface area of adsorbent. More the surface area of adsorbent, more is the rate of physical adsorption. As the surface area increases, more and more adsorbate can accumulate on the surface of the adsorbent. Therefore, finely divided metals act as a good adsorbent. Heat of adsorption. So no doubt physical adsorption is an exothermic process but the interaction between adsorbate and adsorbent is a weak van der Waals force of attraction. Therefore, less amount of heat is liberated. About 20 to 40 kilojoules per heat is liberated. So these are all the characteristic properties of physical adsorptions. Next, the characteristic features of chemical adsorption. The features are highly specific, irreversible, surface area of adsorbent and heat of adsorption. So these are the characteristic features of chemical adsorption. They are highly specific, they are irreversible, and surface area of adsorbent. The extent of chemical adsorption depends on the surface area of adsorbent and heat of adsorption. Highly specific, unlike physical adsorption, chemical adsorption is highly specific because a chemical adsorption can occur only if there is a possibility of forming chemical bond between adsorbate and adsorbent. For example, oxygen gas can be adsorbed on the surface of the metal only if it can form an oxide with the metal surface, or hydrogen gas can be adsorbed on the surface of the metal only if there is a chance to form an hydride between hydrogen and metal. So chemical adsorption is highly specific. It takes place only if there is a possibility of chemical bonding between adsorbate and adsorbent. And irreversible, as chemical bond formation is involved in chemisorption, it is highly irreversible. We cannot change or reverse the chemical process by simply changing the conditions of temperature and pressure. And surface area of adsorbent, As in the case of physical adsorption, here also the rate of chemical adsorption increases with increase in the surface area of adsorbent. Next, heat of adsorption. Chemical adsorption is also an exothermic process. As chemical bond formation is involved, the heat of adsorption is high compared to that of physical adsorption. It is about 80 to 240 kilojoules per mole. As a strong chemical bond formation is involved in chemical adsorption, the heat of adsorption is more, 80 to 240 kilojoules per mole. So these are the characteristics of physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. So note these points. Chemical adsorption is highly specific, it is irreversible, and it depends on surface area of adsorbent and heat of adsorption. It is high in the case of chemical adsorption. And here the expected question is, what are the difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption? So the difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption is, you can write some points. First you have to write the definition for physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. How chemical adsorption is formed or physical adsorption is formed. Physical adsorption arises because of the van der Waals force, whereas a chemical adsorption is formed because of the chemical bond. And physical adsorption is less specific, whereas a chemical adsorption is highly specific. And physical adsorption is reversible, whereas a chemical adsorption is irreversible. And heat of adsorption is less in the case of physical adsorption, whereas a more heat of adsorption in chemical adsorption, or less amount of heat is liberated during physical adsorption and more amount of heat is liberated during chemical adsorption. So you can write 4 points. First is how the physical adsorption is formed and chemical adsorption is formed, and second is their specific nature. Physical adsorption is less specific, whereas a chemical adsorption is more specific. Next, third point is the reversible nature. Physical adsorption is reversible, whereas the chemical adsorption is irreversible. And the heat of adsorption, the fourth point is heat of adsorption. Heat of adsorption is less in the case of physical adsorption and heat of adsorption is more in the case of chemical adsorption. So you can write the points of difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. So first point is physical adsorption arises due to van der Waals force, whereas the chemical adsorption is due to chemical bond formation. Between adsorbate and adsorbent. This is the first point. Next, second point, it is less specific, and here it is highly specific. And third point is reversible, and here it is irreversible. Next, fourth point here is heat of adsorption is less and here it is heat of adsorption is high. You can also mention the magnitude. Here it is about 20 to 40 kilojoules per mole, and here it is 80 to 240 kilojoules per mole. So this is one of the expected question in this chapter, the difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. Write these points, the difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption. So next is the adsorption isotherm. Adsorption isotherm. The variation in the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent with the pressure at constant temperature is plotted by using a curve called adsorption isotherm. Here iso means same, therm means temperature, at constant temperature. So as we know that the adsorption increases, physical adsorption increases with increase in pressure. So the amount of variation in the amount of gas adsorbed by the solid with the pressure. How the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent varies with the pressure at constant temperature. That variation can be plotted by using a curve called adsorption isotherm. That curves are called adsorption isotherm. So here we are going to discuss about Freundlich adsorption isotherm. Freundlich adsorption isotherm. So Freundlich gave an empirical relationship between the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent with variation in the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent with the pressure at constant temperature. That adsorption is called Freundlich adsorption isotherm. So it is represented by using an equation x by m is equal to k into p to the power 1 over n, where n is greater than 1. So this expression is called Freundlich adsorption isotherm. X by m is equal to k into p to the power 1 over n, where n is greater than 1. So what is x? X is the amount of gas adsorbed. X is the amount of gas adsorbed, and m is mass of adsorbent. M is mass of adsorbent. So x is amount of gas adsorbed, and m is mass of adsorbent, and p is a pressure, and k and n are constants. Its value depends on the nature of adsorbate and adsorbent. So adsorption isotherm means variation in the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent with the pressure. So by changing the pressure, or either increasing or by decreasing the pressure, how the amount of gas adsorbed on adsorbent varies at constant temperature. That is studied by using isotherm, that is curve. That is isotherms are called adsorption isotherm. So Freundlich adsorption isotherm is explained by using this expression x by m is equal to k into p to the power 1 over n, where x is amount of gas adsorbed and m is mass of adsorbent and p is pressure, and k and n are constants. Its value depends on the nature of adsorbate, that is gas, and adsorbent, that is solid. And We can plot here, we can write the isotherm like this. We can plot x by m versus pressure. X by m is plotted against pressure. So we know that with increase in pressure, the rate of adsorption also increases. Here x by m means extent of adsorption or rate of adsorption. So it gives a curve like this. So rate of adsorption increases with increase in pressure, but at higher pressure it attains saturation. So rate of adsorption increases with increase in pressure, but at higher pressure it attains saturation. That may be because of the attaining equilibrium between adsorption and desorption. So this is a plot, and we can also write this plot at different temperatures. So here also we can write the different temperatures. I'll write one curve here and another curve here, and this is the rate of adsorption at 273 Kelvin, and this is about 240 Kelvin, and this is at 195 Kelvin. So by this we can say that the physical adsorption is favorable at low temperatures. So rate of physical adsorption is more at lower temperature, and the physical adsorption decreases with increase in pressure. So the different curves indicates the rate of adsorption at different temperatures. But this entire plot explains the variation in the amount of gas adsorbed by the adsorbent with the pressure. Variation in the amount of gas adsorbed with the pressure at constant temperature. So this plot is called isotherms. Important expression, Freundlich adsorption isotherm, x by m is equal to k into p to the power 1 by n. The validity of this isotherm is defined or checked by taking the logarithm of this equation. So we can take the logarithm of equation. So Freundlich adsorption isotherm is x by m is equal to k into p to the power 1 by n. Take the logarithm of this equation. Log of x by m is equal to log k plus 1 over p into log n. 1 over n into log p. So logarithm of Freundlich adsorption isotherm is log of x by m is equal to log k plus 1 over n into log p. So if you compare this equation with the equation of straight line y is equal to mx plus c, we should get a straight line. So if you plot log of x by m versus the log p, we get a straight line like this, and here the values of k and n can be find out by using the intercept and slope of this line. So the value of intercept is equal to log k. By using by the value of intercept we can get the value of k, and from the value of slope, it is equal to 1 by n. We can get the value of n. The Freundlich adsorption isotherm is valid if we get a straight line, but the practical observation shows a slight deviation at high pressure. It won't give a straight line at higher pressure, so that indicates that Freundlich adsorption isotherm is not applicable at higher pressure. So to check the validity of Freundlich adsorption isotherm, we have to take the logarithm of that equation. Log of x by m is equal to log k plus 1 over n into log p. So if you compare this equation with the equation of straight line, you should get a straight line. So log of x by m is plotted against log p. We will get a straight line like this with the intercept is equal to log k, and the slope value gives 1 by n. From the values of intercept and slope, we can get the values of K and N. The adsorption isotherm is valid if it gives a straight line, but the practical observation shows a slight variation or a deviation at higher pressure that indicates that Freundlich's adsorption isotherm is not applicable at higher pressure. Right? And after that, one more adsorption isotherm is also there, that is the Langmuir adsorption isotherm, but that is not included in the NCERT textbook. So important one is expression for Freundlich adsorption isotherm and its terms. So note these Freundlich adsorption isotherm and its terms. Next, adsorption, applications of adsorptions. As I said in the beginning, we find many applications of adsorption in our daily life. People who are working in gas mines wear gas masks which contains a mixture of adsorbent like activated charcoal or other adsorbent which adsorbs poisonous gases present in the mines, and to create high vacuum. You know that the vacuum is created by using a vacuum pump, right? But even the last traces of air can be removed by using silica gel. That is the second application of adsorption. And also mixture of noble gases can be separated by adsorption. A mixture of noble gases contains a number of noble gases, and that noble gases adsorbed in a different rate and on activated charcoal at different temperatures. So based on that principle, mixture of noble gases can be separated. And in maintaining humidity or controlling humidity, silica gel and aluminum gels are used to control humidity. And in curing diseases, the adsorption of drugs on the surface of the germs and it kills them. So this is a curing action of drugs. Here also the process of adsorption takes place. So these are some of the examples where we can use the adsorption process. So by this we end up with the chapter adsorption. So actually this chapter contains 3 different parts. First part is adsorption, second is catalysis, and third is colloids. So here we are end up with adsorption. What is adsorption? What is absorption? Difference between adsorption and absorption, mechanism of adsorption, types of adsorption, difference between the physical adsorption and chemical adsorption, and adsorption isotherm. So these are all the topics which comes under adsorption. Next, let us move on to the second part, that is catalysis. So catalysis means, again I will start with an example, potassium chlorate, KClO3, potassium chlorate, it decomposes to give potassium chloride and oxygen. Potassium chlorate decomposes to give potassium chloride and oxygen. So this reaction usually carried out at a temperature of 600 to 800 Kelvin. It is a slow reaction. It takes at a higher temperature of 600 to 800 Kelvin. But if a small amount of manganese dioxide, MnO2, is added to this reaction, the reaction takes place in a much accelerated rate and also at a temperature of 400 to 600 Kelvin. So decomposition of potassium chlorate takes place in the slower rate and also at a high temperature. But if you add a small amount of manganese dioxide, the reaction takes place in a much accelerated rate and also at the lower temperature. So there are many examples where the rate of a chemical reaction may increase by adding a certain foreign substances, and the effect of these foreign substances on rate of reaction was first studied by a scientist called Berzelius in 1835, and he gave he gave the name catalyst for that substances, foreign substances. And the process that takes place in the presence of a catalyst is called catalysis. So there are foreign substances which increases the rate of the reaction without itself undergoing any chemical change or physical change. That foreign substances are called catalyst, and the process that takes place in the presence of a catalyst is called catalysis. So this is about catalysis, and along with that we have to define one more terms called promoters and poisons. Promoters and poisons. So promoters are the substances which increases the activity of a catalyst. Promoters are the substances which increases the activity of catalyst. So catalyst is a substance which increases the rate of the reaction without undergoing any change without undergoing any chemical change or physical change. But promoters are the substances which increases the activity of a catalyst. For example, the reaction between nitrogen and hydrogen to give ammonia, NH3. Nitrogen, hydrogen to give ammonia. So we can write the equation like this: N2 plus 3H2 to give 2NH3. The reaction is catalyzed by iron as a catalyst. Iron powder is catalyzed this reaction. If a small amount of a transition metal, that is molybdenum, is added to this reaction, the activity of iron catalyst is increased. So that is, molybdenum acts as a promoter. So promoter is a substance which increases the activity of a catalyst. So, and poisons. So poisons are the substances which decreases the efficiency or activity of catalyst. For example, in the preparation of sulfuric acid by contact process, we have a reaction like this: sulfur dioxide is oxidized to sulfur trioxide. Sulfur dioxide is oxidized to sulfur trioxide, and this reaction is catalyzed by V2O5, that is vanadium pentoxide. Vanadium pentoxide. During this process, if any arsenic impurities are present, that may decrease the activity of vanadium pentoxide. So arsenic impurities are catalytic poisons, whereas a molybdenum is a catalytic promoter. So promoters and poisons. Promoters increases the activity of a catalyst, whereas a catalytic poisons decreases the activity of a catalyst. So this is about catalysis, catalyst, promoters and poisons. So catalysts are the substances which increases the rate of the reaction without itself undergoing any change in physical or chemical composition. Promoters are the substances which increases the activity of a catalyst, and poisons are the substances which decreases the activity of a catalyst. Example for promoters: in the preparation of ammonia, iron powder is used as a catalyst. In that, if you add a small amount of molybdenum, it increases the activity of iron powder. Whereas in the preparation of sulfuric acid, vanadium pentoxide, V2O5, is used as a catalyst. If any small amount of arsenic impurities are present, that decreases the efficiency of vanadium pentoxide. So that is about promoters and poisons. Next important one is catalysis. Types of catalysis. So there are two types of catalysis: homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis. Important: homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis. Definition and examples. So you can understand it easily. Homogeneous catalysis means if the physical state of reactant, product and the catalyst are same. Such type of catalytic process is called homogeneous catalysis. A reactant, product and catalyst are in the same physical state, liquid or gas. That is called homogeneous catalysis. For example, oxidation of sulfur dioxide to sulfur trioxide, SO2 plus O2, oxidation of sulfur dioxide to sulfur trioxide. Here the sulfur dioxide in the gaseous state, oxygen is also in the gaseous state, sulfur trioxide is also in the gaseous state. The nitric oxide is oxides of nitrogen, or nitric oxide is used as a catalyst, which is also in the gaseous state. So this is an example for homogeneous catalysis. Reactants, products and catalysts all are in the same physical state. So this is called homogeneous catalysis. This is the reaction which takes place in the lead chamber process that is used for the preparation of sulfuric acid. This is one example for homogeneous catalysis. Second example is hydrolysis of methyl acetate, CH3COO, CH3. This is in the liquid state. Hydrolysis, it is also in the liquid state. It is catalyzed by H plus ion, which is given by HCl. It is also in the liquid state and it gives product like CH3COOH and CH3OH in the liquid state. So here all the reactants and products and the catalysts are in the same physical state. So these are called homogeneous catalysis. Reactant, products and the catalyst are in the same physical state, that is called homogeneous catalysis. And what do you mean by heterogeneous catalysis? If the physical states of reactants and the catalyst are in different then it is called heterogeneous catalysis. The physical states of reactant and catalyst is different, then it is called heterogeneous catalysis. The examples are, as I said earlier, the reaction between nitrogen and hydrogen to give ammonia, NH3. Here the nitrogen in the gaseous state, hydrogen is also in the gaseous state, ammonia is also in the gaseous state. But the catalyst used is iron powder, which is in the solid state. So this is an example for heterogeneous catalysis. If the reactants and the catalyst are in the different physical states, such mechanism is called, such reaction is called heterogeneous catalysis. In the example of preparation of ammonia, nitrogen and hydrogen are in the gaseous state. Here the catalyst used is iron powder, which is in the solid state. And also in the preparation of nitric acid, one step is involved, that is oxidation of ammonia, NH3 plus oxygen. Oxidation of ammonia, NH3 plus O2 to give nitric oxide and water. So you have to balance this equation 4, 5, 4, 6. You can also check it by trial and error method for oxidation of ammonia to nitric oxide. This reaction is catalyzed by platinum gauze. Here ammonia in the gaseous state, oxygen also gaseous state, nitric oxide in the gaseous state and water is in the liquid state. The platinum solid, the catalyst used is platinum gauze, which is in the solid state. So this is an example for heterogeneous catalysis. Remember any one easiest example, definition and example is important. Homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis. Homogeneous catalysis means if the physical states of reactant, product and catalyst are same, such reaction is called homogeneous catalysis. If the physical states of reactant and catalyst are different, such catalytic process is called heterogeneous catalysis. So remember at least one example for each. And also we have enzyme catalysis. So enzymes are the complex nitrogenous compounds present in the body of animals, and also it is present in the plants. These are the complex nitrogenous compounds. Usually the enzymes are proteins of high molecular mass. They catalyze many reactions which sustains the life process in plant and animals. Therefore they are also called biochemical catalysts, and the process is called biochemical catalysis. So biology students may know very well examples for enzyme catalysis, that is inversion of cane sugar. Inversion of cane sugar, that is a conversion of sucrose into glucose and fructose, C12, H22, O11 plus water to give glucose and fructose, C6, H12, O6 plus C6, H12, O6. So this is sucrose, it gives glucose and fructose. And this reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme invertase. And one more example, the conversion of glucose into alcohol. C6H12O6 to give C2H5OH plus carbon dioxide. So glucose to alcohol, this is catalyzed by the enzyme zymase. These are these two examples for enzyme catalysis. Inversion of cane sugar is catalyzed by the enzyme invertase, and a conversion of glucose to alcohol is catalyzed by the enzyme zymase. And some more examples, the decomposition of urea into ammonia is catalyzed by the enzyme urease. And the conversion of milk into curd, it is catalyzed by the enzyme lactobacilli. And the conversion of maltose into glucose, it is catalyzed by the enzyme maltase. And in the stomach, the enzyme pepsin converts proteins into peptides. And in the intestine, the enzyme pancreatic trypsin converts proteins into amino acids by hydrolysis. These are all some examples for enzyme catalysis. So we have studied about the catalysis, the types of catalysis, homogeneous catalysis, heterogeneous catalysis and enzyme catalysis. I repeat, catalysis is a process which takes place in the presence of a catalyst, and a catalyst is a substance which increases the rate of the reaction without itself undergoing any change in chemical composition or in mass. A homogeneous catalysis is a reaction where the physical state of reactants, products and the catalyst are same. In heterogeneous catalysis, the physical state of reactants and the catalyst is different. And enzyme catalysis is a special type of catalytic process where the reaction takes place in plants and animals by the presence of an enzyme. So study the definition for each and remember at least one example for each. And next is adsorption theory of heterogeneous catalysis. So heterogeneous catalysis means the physical state of reactants and the catalyst are different. So here the process takes place or the reaction takes place based on the adsorption. So it was explained by modern adsorption theory, that is adsorption theory of heterogeneous catalysis. And here remember that the solid is adsorbent and gas molecules are the adsorbate. In the heterogeneous catalysis, for example, in the preparation of ammonia, N2, preparation of ammonia by Haber's process, 2NH3, this is in the gaseous state, hydrogen in the gaseous state, nitrogen is also in the gaseous state. The reaction takes place in the presence of iron powder, which is in the solid state. So this is an example for heterogeneous catalysis. Here the catalyst is solid and the reactants are in the gaseous state. So this is an example for heterogeneous catalysis. Iron powder is a solid adsorbent and the reactants, that is the nitrogen and hydrogen, are the gaseous reactants, or they are adsorbate, and these are adsorbent. So according to modern theory of heterogeneous catalysis, it explains how the catalytic activity is localized on the surface of the catalyst. Catalytic activity is localized on the surface of the catalyst. So based on modern adsorption theory, there are 5 steps. In the first step, diffusion of reactant to the surface of catalyst. Diffusion of the reactant to the surface of the catalyst. I will explain in detail by using a schematic diagram. And the second step is adsorption of reactant on the surface of catalyst, solid catalyst. And the third step is reaction between reactants to form an intermediate. And the fourth step is desorption of product. And the last step is diffusion of products. So these are the 5 steps involved in the heterogeneous catalysis based on modern adsorption theory. First step is diffusion of reactant to the surface of catalyst. Second step is adsorption of reactant on the surface of catalyst. Third step is reaction between reactants to form an intermediate. And fourth step is desorption of product and diffusion of product, the last step is. Next, I will explain it with an schematic diagram. So these are the solid surface, and all these are free valencies available on the surface of the solid. Because of the presence of these free valencies, adsorption of reactant takes place on the surface of the solid. So these are the free valencies available on the surface of the solid catalyst. So the reactants are A and B. The first step is diffusion of reactants to the surface of the catalyst. The reactants come closer to the surface of the catalyst. That is the first step. And the second step is adsorption of reactant on the surface of the solid catalyst. And these reactant get adsorbed on the surface of the solid catalyst. You can write like this. the solid reactants are adsorbed on the surface of the solid catalyst. Because of the presence of that free valencies, the reactants are adsorbed on the surface of the solid catalyst. This is the second step, adsorption of the reacting species on the surface of the solid catalyst. And the third step is, if the adsorption takes place at the adjacent sites, then they may undergo reaction to form an intermediate. So reaction takes place between the reactants A and B and they form an intermediate. So this is a intermediate, and the next is, the last step is desorption. Once they form an intermediate, they can form product, and once they form product, it is dissolved from the surface of the solid catalyst. And here the product is formed AB. So this is a desorption or removal of the product from the surface of the solid catalyst, and after that this product moves away from the solid surface so that the catalyst surface is available for the new reacting species. So these are the 5 steps involved in the modern adsorption theory or catalysis of heterogeneous mechanism of heterogeneous catalysis. So these are the catalyst surface with the free valencies, and these are the 2 reactants. The first reactants come closer to the surface of the solid catalyst, that is diffusion of the reactant molecule towards the surface of the solid catalyst. A second step is adsorption of the reactant molecules on the surface of the solid catalyst. And the third step is, if the reactant adsorbed on adjacent sides, then there is a formation of intermediate between A and B. So once they form intermediate, they can easily form product. It is decomposed to form product, and then it is dissolved from the surface of the solid, and finally that dissolved product is diffused away from the solid surface so that it is available for fresh reacting species. So these are the 5 steps involved in the mechanism of heterogeneous catalysis. So I repeat the 5 steps involved in the mechanism of heterogeneous catalysis. First step is diffusion of reactant to the surface of the catalyst. Next step is adsorption of reactant on the surface of catalyst. Third step is reaction between reactants to form an intermediate. Fourth step is desorption of product. And the fifth step is diffusion of product away from the surface of the solid catalyst. So this theory was able to explain why catalyst is efficient even in small quantity and why it remains unchanged chemically and physically at the end of the reaction. However, this theory does not explain the effect of poisons and promoters on catalyst. So this theory was able to explain why catalyst remains unchanged chemically and physically at the end of the reaction, and why it is more efficient even if it is taken in a small quantity, but it does not explain the effect of promoters and poisons on catalyst. Next, there are 2 characteristics of a solid catalyst. First one is activity and selectivity. The two characteristics of solid catalyst are activity and selectivity. The first is activity. The activity of a solid catalyst depends on the strength of chemisorption formed. That means the reaction between adsorbate and adsorbent must be of reasonable strength. That is, the adsorbate must not get adsorbed on the adsorbent too strong or too weak. Means if it is too weak, there may not be possibility of formation of any chemical bonding between adsorbate and adsorbent. If it is too strong, the reactant molecule becomes immobilized on the surface of the catalyst. The activity of a catalyst depends on the strength of chemical bond formed between adsorbate and adsorbent. The adsorbate must not get adsorbed too strongly or too weakly on the surface of the adsorbent. If it becomes too weak, the chemical bond formation may not be possible. If it becomes too strong, the reactant molecule becomes immobilized. That means the catalytic surface may not be available for the next reacting species. So it should be of reasonable strength. The chemical bond formed between adsorbate and adsorbent is of reasonable strength. It should not be too strong or too weak. So the strength of chemical bond depends the activity of the solid catalyst. Next, selectivity. Selectivity of a catalyst is its ability to direct a particular chemical reaction to form a particular product. Means a catalyst is highly selective. A substance is catalyzed one reaction may not catalyze another reaction. It is given by an example. The reaction between carbon monoxide and hydrogen, if it is carried out in the presence of the nickel catalyst, it gives methane and water. So to balance the equation, CO plus 3H2, it gives methane and water. If the carbon monoxide and hydrogen is reacted in the presence of copper in zinc oxide and chromium oxide, Cr2O3, it gives methyl alcohol as product. And if the reaction between and carbon monoxide is carried out in the presence of only copper as a catalyst, it gives formaldehyde, HCHO. So this is how a particular catalyst catalyzes a particular reaction. If reaction between carbon monoxide and hydrogen, if it is carried out in the presence of a nickel catalyst, it gives methane and water. If the reaction between carbon monoxide and hydrogen is carried out in the presence of copper in zinc oxide and chromium oxide, it gives methyl alcohol. And if the reaction between carbon monoxide and hydrogen is carried out in the presence of copper, it gives formaldehyde. So this is the selectivity of a reaction. A reaction is catalyzed by one particular catalyst, and that catalyst may not catalyze any other reaction. So this is the characteristics of solid catalyst, activity and selectivity. Activity of a solid catalyst depends on the strength of chemical bond formed between adsorbate and adsorbent. It should not be very strong or should not be very weak. And selectivity of a catalyst is its ability to direct a reaction to form a particular product. That is, it means that the catalysts are highly selective. And one more special type of catalytic process is shape selective catalysis. So if the catalytic process depends on the pore structure of cavities present on the catalyst and as well as the size of the reactants and products, such type of catalytic process is called shape selective catalysis. If the catalytic process depends on the pore structure of the cavities present on the catalyst and shape and size of the reactant molecules, that is called shape selective catalysis. It is highly selective catalytic process. Zeolites are the best example for shape selective catalysis. You might have heard about zeolites. These are three-dimensional network of silicates. These are the three-dimensional network of silicates where the sum of the silicon atoms are replaced by aluminium atom, and it gives a framework of aluminium, oxygen and silicon. It has honeycomb like structure. You can imagine the structure of zeolite. It has honeycomb like structure. It has different types of cavities on its surface. If the reactant molecules have same size and structure as that of the cavities present on the surface of the zeolite, then that zeolite can be used as a catalyst for that reactants. So shape selective catalysis is a process where it depends only on the pore structure of the cavities present on the catalyst and size and shape of the reactant molecule. The example is zeolite. Zeolite is a three-dimensional network of silicates. Silicate, the formula is SiO4 4- silicates. But here the sum of the silicon atoms are replaced by aluminium atoms, and it gives a three-dimensional framework of aluminium, oxygen and silicon. And one of the important zeolite is ZSM5. It is used as a catalyst in petroleum cracking. And ZSM5 is used in petroleum industry, which converts alcohol into gasoline or petrol directly by dehydrating it. So ZSM5 is an important zeolite used in petroleum industry, which converts alcohol into petrol directly by dehydrating it. So zeolites are available in nature, and also it can be prepared synthetically. So this is about shape selective catalysis. Remember this example which is used as a catalyst in petroleum industry, ZSM5. So this is about shape selective catalysis. If the catalytic process depends on the pore structure of the cavities present on the catalyst and the shape and size of the reactant molecule. If the reactant molecule have the same size which can fit into the pore structure present in the surface of the catalyst or zeolite, that zeolite can be catalyze that particular reaction. It should be complementary to each other. So this is about shape selective catalysis. So next is characteristics of enzyme catalysis. We have studied what is enzyme catalysis. The biochemical processes that are carried out by the presence of an enzyme is called enzyme catalysis. Example is inversion of cane sugar or conversion of sucrose into glucose and fructose. It is catalyzed by the enzyme invertase, or conversion of glucose into ethyl alcohol, that is catalyzed by the enzyme zymase, or the conversion of maltose into glucose by maltase, or the decomposition of urea by urease. These are some examples of enzyme catalysis, and these enzyme catalysis is characterized by few points, that is highly specific, highly efficient, highly active at optimum temperature, and highly active at optimum pH, presence of coenzymes, and presence of poisons or inhibitors. So these are some of the characteristic features of enzyme catalysis. It is highly specific. As I said earlier, enzymes catalysts are highly specific. That is also applicable for the enzyme catalysis. For example, the decomposition of urea is catalyzed by the enzyme urease. Urea is a type of amide. It is an example for amide, but that urease cannot catalyze any other, cannot decompose any other amide other than urea. It cannot catalyze any other amide. So highly specific means enzymes are highly specific. Example is the enzyme urease can catalyze the decomposition of urea, but it cannot catalyze the decomposition of any other amide. Urea is a type of amide. Urease can catalyze the decomposition of only urea, not any other amide. Highly efficient. A single molecule of enzyme can convert millions of reactant into products. Even though it is present in a very small quantity, it is highly efficient. And highly active at optimum temperature. The temperature at which enzymatic activity is maximum is called optimum temperature. So optimum temperature for enzymatic activity is 298 Kelvin to 310 Kelvin. This is optimum temperature for enzymatic activity. Human body temperature being 310 Kelvin, it is suitable for enzymatic activity. And highly active at optimum pH. As optimum temperature, the enzymatic activity is maximum at a particular pH, that is called optimum pH. 5 to 7 is optimum pH for enzymatic activity. And presence of coenzyme. The presence of some non-protein parts like vitamins may increase the activity of enzymes, that is called coenzymes. Some of the presence of some non-protein parts called vitamins may increase the activity of enzymes. They are called coenzymes. And presence of poisons like ordinary catalysts, enzymes are also affected by the presence of poisons. That poisons may block the active centers present on the enzyme catalyst, thus it may decrease the activity of enzymes. And also there is activators. Activators are metal ions which may increase the activity of enzyme catalyst. So these are the characteristics of enzyme catalysis. They are highly specific, highly efficient, means a single molecule can convert millions of reactant into products. Highly active at optimum temperature, that is at 298 Kelvin to 310 Kelvin, enzymatic activity is maximum. Highly active at optimum pH. The optimum pH for enzymatic activity is 5 to 7. And presence of coenzymes. Some of the non-protein parts called vitamins may increase the activity of enzymes. They are called coenzymes. And also the metal ions like sodium, Na plus, Mn2 plus, or CO2 plus, Cu2 plus, these ions may increase the activity of enzymes. They are called activators. And presence of poisons. Like ordinary catalysts, enzymes are also inhibited by the presence of poisons or inhibitors. They may block the active centers present on the surface of the solid catalyst, presence on the enzyme, and decreases the activity of enzymes. So these are the characteristics of enzyme catalysis. Just note the points. And next is mechanism of enzyme catalysis. The surface of the enzyme contains large number of cavities which have a definite shape, and also it is characterized by a definite functional group. The surface of the enzyme contains large number of cavities and it contains a characteristic functional groups like NH2, COOH or OH. These are the different functional group present on the cavities of the catalyst. Actually, these are the active centers present on the surface of the enzyme catalyst. And I'll give one schematic diagram. So this is a enzyme which contains a definite pore cavity structure and a definite functional group. The reactant molecule having complementary shape to that of the cavities present on the enzyme can react with that of the enzyme. So these are the substrate. Substrate means reactant, and this is enzyme. So surface of the enzyme contains large number of cavities having definite pore structure and having definite functional group. And the substrate or reactant molecule having complementary shape to that of the cavities present on the enzyme can react with that of the enzyme. So these two can react with each other and they can form an intermediate. So this is an intermediate formed between the enzyme and substrate. So this is a substrate. The substrate which is having complementary shape to that of the cavities present on the enzyme can fit into it, just like key fits into a lock. This is also called lock and key mechanism. And intermediate is decomposed to give product. And finally, the enzyme retains as it is, whereas the intermediate, it gives different types of products. So these are the products and this is enzyme. So this is a lock and key mechanism of enzyme catalysis. The cavities present on the enzyme surface has a definite shape and definite functional group. The substrate molecule which is having complementary shape to that of the enzyme is fit into it, just like key fits into a lock to form an intermediate. And finally that intermediate breaks up to form products and enzyme retain as it is at the end of the reaction. So this is a schematic diagram of enzyme catalysis, and we can write it like this. Just write this schematic diagram. So we can also write the enzyme catalysis in two steps. Enzyme combines with substrate to form an activated complex. This is enzyme, this is substrate, and this is an activated complex. And in the second step, the activated complex decomposes to give enzyme and product. This is a simple mechanism which involves only two steps how the enzymatic reaction takes place. Enzyme combines with substrate molecule to form an activated complex, and in the second step, activated complex decomposes to give enzyme and again product. So this is about the mechanism of enzyme catalysis, the schematic diagram and the two steps involved in the enzymatic mechanism. These are important, the steps involved in the enzymatic mechanism, lock and key mechanism of enzyme catalysis. So this is the first part of the surface chemistry, which includes adsorption and catalysis. The important points in the chapter is the difference between physical adsorption and chemical adsorption, expression for Freundlich adsorption isotherm, heterogeneous catalysis and homogeneous catalysis, example and definition and example, and the mechanism, steps involved in the mechanism of enzyme catalysis. Just write these two steps.